This is not a pandemic. This is not 2020. It is the summer of 2025, and airports across the United States are gradually falling silent. What exactly happened? There was no one there. Entire rows sat empty. Travelers found it shocking. Some had never been on a flight so empty. Striking images of nearly deserted passenger planes are spreading across social media. International flights that once brought crowds of tourists to the USA are now carrying just a handful of passengers, sometimes almost alone. If you're planning to fly to the US this summer, you may find fewer flight options. There is no travel ban. No virus has returned. Yet, 3 million international tourists from Canada, the UK, and Europe have quietly cancelled their trips. Several of America's largest airports now stand eerily quiet. Cities that once thrived on tourism are counting the days just to survive. From New York to Los Angeles, from Las Vegas to Orlando, airports are slowly becoming deserted. Flights from Toronto, London, and Tokyo are being repeatedly cancelled or delayed. Even Americans themselves are cutting back on flying. The TSA has recorded a decline in passenger numbers for the first time since the pandemic. Today's video will examine 15 airports in the United States that stand on the brink of collapse as millions of travelers withdraw. A major question emerges. Why is the entire world quietly turning away from the United States? And is the airport in your state the next name to vanish from the international travel map? Don't look away. Number 1. JFK Airport, New York City. JFK Airport in New York, once crowded with streams of people arriving in America, now feels unsettlingly empty, as if the entire world just evacuated. Once hailed as the gateway to America, it welcomed thousands of passengers daily from every continent. It used to be as busy as a world fair, with luggage constantly moving and loudspeakers making non-stop announcements. Now, when you step through the cold glass doors, the only sound is your own footsteps echoing among rows of dust-covered seats. It isn't closed. But it is so desolate it seems the world has quietly turned its back. Gone are the children asking excitedly, "Does Disney really have a castle?" Gone are the long lines of people clutching their passports, eager to experience the American dream. In 2025, New York is projected to lose more than 3 million international tourists. Along with them will go $25 billion in revenue, vanishing from the city's economy without so much as a sound or a warning. No one is making reservations at Le Bernardin. No one is lining up at the Guggenheim. Fifth Avenue no longer has shoppers strolling with designer bags draped over their arms. One woman from England shared, "I used to fly to New York every 2 years to see Broadway. But this year, I canceled the trip. Not because I'm afraid of America, but because America no longer welcomes me the way it used to." It's not just about a canceled vacation. It is about a relationship fracturing between the US and the rest of the world. If JFK, America's international heart, is this quiet, what about smaller airports that depend entirely on tourism? Is this silence temporary, or is it the tolling of a bell signaling a decade-long farewell? Number 2. LAX Airport, Los Angeles. If JFK is the heart, then LAX on the West Coast is the lung. And it's struggling in its own way. The story there is even more startling. At Los Angeles International Airport, you used to see a celebrity every minute. But this summer, all you see are empty rows of seats and a long list of cancelled flights, like some sad headline in the news. LAX once embodied the American dream, California dreaming, golden sunshine, and blue oceans. Now it feels as gloomy as the set of a film that's been cancelled. The flight route between Toronto and LAX, once one of the busiest in the world, has cut its capacity by 76%. A shocking development for anyone who believed Canadian tourists would always flock to California. Why is this happening? First, the Canadian government issued a travel advisory for the United States, warning citizens about gun violence, civil unrest, and declining public services. Second, the Canadian dollar has weakened, making everything in Los Angeles absurdly expensive. Finally, there is the loss of a sense of safety, a powerful reason many have chosen to abandon the trip altogether. A businessman from Toronto who used to bring his entire family to LA every year explained, "Hotel prices in Santa Monica are 40% higher than before the pandemic, but the service has declined. I'm not going to spend thousands of dollars just to feel anxious." This turning away isn't caused by political disputes or visa problems. It's something even more dangerous, a loss of trust. In just the first half of 2025, the total number of international visitors to Los Angeles has dropped by more than 30%, the worst decline on the West Coast, even surpassing San Francisco and Seattle. Ironically, Canada, America's closest friend and neighbor, has cut the most flights to the US. It's not a dispute. It's that trust is eroding. LAX, once the red carpet of the American tourism industry, now feels like a movie theater with no audience. The boarding gates shut like a stage curtain coming down when no one is left to watch. When the lights go out and even your closest neighbors stop coming, who will America still hold on to? LAX is losing its shine. Number 3. Orlando International Airport, Orlando, Florida. Meanwhile, in Orlando, what's disappearing isn't just tourism dollars but the bright-eyed wonder of children seeing the Disney castle for the first time. When a trip to Disney becomes a luxury, perhaps the American dream itself is changing color. Orlando, once the capital of childhood joy, where millions of families from around the world gathered to meet Mickey Mouse and princesses, is now strangely empty. Disney World, where reservations once had to be made 3 months in advance, now has days with unsold tickets. Orlando International Airport has recorded the steepest decline in international passenger traffic in a decade, right in the middle of peak summer travel season. One mother in Texas had promised her 7-year-old son that if he studied hard, he could go to Disney in the summer. But after adding up over $2,800 in airfare, hotel costs, and admission, she had to tell him otherwise. She said, "I told you Disney was under renovation. I didn't have the courage to tell you the truth. I can't afford it." A trip to Orlando is no longer a reward for well-behaved children on summer vacation. It's become a major financial hurdle for entire families. Airfares have risen 45% compared to 2019. Hotel prices in the Disney area have nearly doubled. Park tickets and food costs have turned the dream into a sort of long-term payment plan. Inflation doesn't just eat into people's wallets. It steals childhood itself from kids who can no longer travel the way their parents once did. Local reports say many hotels in the area can't even maintain enough guests to keep their operations stable for the first time since COVID. Nearly 1/3 of Google searches for Orlando trips were abandoned during the ticket booking phase in the first quarter of this year. Disney World, once a castle of joy, now looks like a dusty crown surrounded by walls of staggering prices. The gates remain open, the music still plays, but the smiles are now reserved for those who can actually afford them. In some states, people are paying for fast food meals in installments. So who is even thinking about taking their kids to Disney? When was the last time you took your child, grandchild, or family on a trip? Are we witnessing the quiet fading away of the American childhood dream? Please share your thoughts. Number 4. McCarran International Airport, Las Vegas, Nevada. Meanwhile, McCarran International Airport in Las Vegas, once bustling with international travelers arriving in the city of lights, parties, and sleepless nights, now seems almost abandoned. There are no more lines of people waiting for taxis or groups dragging their suitcases toward the casinos. The vast parking lots stand empty. Las Vegas, once an unmissable icon, is slowly being forgotten. A single mother in Vancouver used to treat herself to a Vegas getaway every year. This year, everything changed. She explained, "I used to feel Vegas was a place where I could be myself and be free. But this year I didn't buy a ticket. I no longer feel welcomed by America." Her words were gentle, yet enough to make many Americans uncomfortable. Estimates suggest that visitor numbers to Las Vegas will drop by 8% in the second quarter of 2025, translating to hundreds of thousands fewer tourists. Revenue from major casinos has already fallen by over 5%, forcing many restaurants, bars, and souvenir shops to cut staff or shut down early. Las Vegas still has plenty of hotels and events, but it's running short on trust. A series of news reports about safety issues, thefts, and fights around the Strip have made international tourists nervous. Meanwhile, airfares and hotel rates in Las Vegas have risen between 25% and 35% since the pandemic. The overall feeling? If travelers must risk both their wallets and their safety, they'll pick another destination. It's hard to believe that a city once famous for spontaneous getaways has turned into a destination people now have to think twice about. Las Vegas, once an endless play of lights, now feels like a stage with no audience. An airport that once sent travelers off with a smile is as silent as a bar forgotten at dawn. When the place once known as the world's playground is no longer even an option, what comes next? Do you feel that America is drifting further away from those who once loved it most? Number 5. Denver International Airport, Denver, Colorado. Denver International Airport, once the busiest transit hub in the western United States, where nearly every cross-country journey required a stop, is now facing reductions in flights, staff cuts, and declining passenger numbers right in the middle of peak season. This marks the first time since the pandemic that domestic traffic at Denver has fallen for 3 consecutive quarters, despite no new health crisis, snowstorms, or sanctions. Perhaps the most surprising part is that even Americans themselves are flying less. Unusual, yet understandable. When inflation eats away at incomes, visiting family or taking business trips is no longer a casual weekend plan. Domestic ticket prices have risen by an average of 26% compared to last year, while service quality has declined, with increasing delays. Many travelers now choose to drive 12 hours rather than fly for 2 hours with multiple delays and lost luggage. Denver, once the beating heart of domestic connectivity, finds itself in a paradox. A system designed to connect Americans is being abandoned by them instead. One IT employee from Phoenix used to fly from Denver to Chicago for work twice a month. Now, he holds meetings online and drives when necessary. He shared, "I've lost faith in domestic airlines. No one informed me when my flight was canceled. No one apologized when I missed the event." The anger here isn't about a single incident. It's the feeling of being abandoned by the very system I once trusted. Notably, the TSA checkpoint at Denver has seen declining passenger numbers for 3 consecutive quarters, the first time this has happened since 9/11. It shows that this crisis isn't driven by external forces but by internal failures. Denver, once the essential transit hub of America, now resembles a gas station with a clogged circuit, where travelers pass through only to find a way out. Corridors once filled with constant footsteps now echo with the end-of-day vacuum cleaner and announcements of canceled flights. When even Americans lose faith in domestic travel, is the nation losing its ability to stay connected with itself? Have you ever canceled a flight because flying no longer felt worth it? Number 6. Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, Seattle, Washington. Seattle may remain the tech capital, but its airport is starting to resemble an unmanned station. Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, once the most dynamic trade gateway in the Pacific Northwest, is now strangely quiet, desolate, and stripped of major international routes. A software engineer from Tokyo who used to attend an annual technology conference in Seattle shared that this year, his company relocated the entire event to Singapore. He explained, "The reasons are high costs, unstable connections, and the hassle of leaving the airport." Seattle is a place where the dream of innovation meets stunning nature. But it's also a place caught in a double bind of work. The severe homelessness crisis has spread to areas near the airport, making many international tourists feel unsafe. Meanwhile, hotel prices continue to rise, consumer taxes are high, and there are frequent travel warnings from Asia and Europe about increasing urban crime in American cities. Seattle, a city known for its combination of clouds and cutting-edge technology, now has an airport shrouded in mist, much like the fog over Puget Sound. The lights are on, the systems function, but there's a lack of people, hope, and reasons to come. For the first time in 15 years, Seattle no longer ranks among the top 10 airports chosen for U.S. transit by Asian travelers. It's a quiet decline, but also a stark warning. If a hub of innovation like Seattle is seeing this setback, what city is safe in the American tourism industry? Are international tourists leaving temporarily, or are they simply never coming back? Number 7. O'Hare International Airport, Chicago, Illinois. O'Hare, once synonymous with flight delays and famously never sleeping, is now seeing departure gates close in the middle of the day. Shops that were once open 24/7 now sit dark. Taxi wait times have shortened alarmingly, not because of better service, but because there are no passengers. International visitors from Europe have sharply declined, especially from Germany, the UK, and Italy. The reasons include stricter visa policies and a less appealing image of the United States. Even domestic American travelers are flying less due to higher ticket prices, frequent delays, and dissatisfaction after repeated airline problems. Airlines themselves are prioritizing smaller airports with lower costs. Notably, some major carriers are even considering moving their hubs from O'Hare to smaller airports like Minneapolis, seeking lower expenses and less chaos. Once again, Chicago is being outdone in silence, not by competitors, but by its own internal decline. O'Hare, once a global crossroads, now resembles a lonely toll booth in the desert. Where lines of vehicles once waited, only dust and wind remain. The planes still sit on the tarmac, the doors still revolve, but the buzz of being at the center of the world is gone. If aviation hubs like Chicago also become places to avoid, what will be left to keep the heart of U.S. tourism beating? Have you ever been stuck at O'Hare? Now, imagine an O'Hare with no congestion, simply because no one is arriving. Number 8. Daniel K. Inouye International Airport, Honolulu, Hawaii. Honolulu, the honeymoon capital that once welcomed millions of Asian tourists annually, has grown as quiet as a landscape painting gathering dust in its frame. At Daniel K. Inouye International Airport, the electronic boards for international flights display more blank spaces than ever. Flights from Tokyo, Seoul, and Taipei, once the backbone of Hawaii's tourism industry, have dropped sharply, sometimes operating just 2 flights a day. Asian tourists have grown increasingly concerned about rising costs and the fading warmth of their experiences. Meanwhile, Hawaii's state government has tightened tax policies, increased accommodation fees, and even limited visitor numbers after previous periods of overwhelming tourism. Cultural controversies, backlash against mass tourism, and the broader image of an unstable America have created an invisible barrier between Hawaii and the world. It remains a paradise, still beautiful, but perhaps no longer welcoming. The total number of international visitors to Hawaii has fallen by over 36% compared to pre-pandemic levels, mainly from Asia. Honolulu Airport has lost nearly 40 international flights per week compared to the same period in 2019. Statewide, tourism revenue has dropped by nearly $3 billion in just 12 months. Notably, in 2025, the number of Japanese tourists visiting Hawaii fell to its lowest level in over 30 years, even lower than after the 2008 financial crisis. It may seem like a small drop, but it hits at the very foundation of Hawaii's tourism economy. Hawaii, once the pearl of the Pacific, now lies like a fallen gem in the sand, unclaimed. The beaches remain. The waves still sing. But there are no fresh footprints in the sand. If a place like Hawaii, without war, violence, or distance, can still be left behind, then where does the real problem lie? Has America ceased to be a destination and become merely a memory? Number 9. Phoenix Sky Harbor International Airport, Phoenix, Arizona. Can you imagine a city with 300 sunny days a year, once the perfect winter destination, now watching its airport stand deserted during the peak tourist season? Phoenix Sky Harbor, one of America's fastest-growing airports over the past decade, is now experiencing a steep drop in international passenger traffic. Flights from Canada, Arizona's traditional winter market, have been cut by nearly 70% on some routes. Gone are the scenes of tourists strolling in the warm sun. Instead, the airport feels like a vast waiting room with no one waiting. Outside, Phoenix temperatures soar to 40 degrees. Inside the airport, it feels chillingly cold, not because of air conditioning, but due to emptiness. Arizona was once a winter paradise for Canadians and Northern Europeans, prized for its dry climate, reasonable costs, and wide open spaces. But everything changed abruptly. The Canadian government issued a travel advisory for the United States, directly impacting Phoenix, which hosts the largest community of Canadian retirees in the Southwest. The fear of high emergency medical costs now makes older tourists hesitate to return. Moreover, Phoenix lacks the cultural highlights, culinary experiences, and new attractions that many travelers now seek. As a result, international tourists are choosing Mexico or Southern Europe instead. A place once cherished for its sunshine and tranquility is now dismissed as unfriendly and dull. Phoenix, the city of the sun and shimmering deserts, now resembles an abandoned winter resort, full of light but empty of human warmth. Sky Harbor Airport itself looks like a deserted resort at peak season. If those who once considered Phoenix their winter home are turning away, who will keep the city's sunny spirit alive? Do you believe that one day even sunlight won't be enough to draw tourists back? Number 10. Boston Logan International Airport, Boston, Massachusetts. Boston, a city that once taught the world about enlightenment, revolution, and modern thinking, is now quietly disappearing from the itineraries of millions of international tourists. Boston Logan International Airport, linked to Harvard, MIT, freedom, and American history, is seeing a steady decline in international passenger numbers, despite no obvious crisis. An airport once associated with knowledge and culture now has fewer and fewer people coming to learn, reflect, or walk its historic paths. In the past year, international student numbers have sharply declined due to stricter visa policies, soaring tuition costs, and strong competition from countries like Canada, Australia, and the Netherlands. 11. Salt Lake City International Airport, Salt Lake City, Utah. Salt Lake City International Airport was once an important transit hub connecting the West Coast to the inland states. Today, it has become an unusually empty space. International flights, which were already scarce, are now even rarer. Even domestic routes from major hubs like Seattle, Los Angeles, and Denver have been cut. Though the airport remains clean and its systems operational, the people simply aren't coming. The decline in domestic tourism has forced airlines to cut unprofitable routes to smaller cities. The cost of flying to places like Salt Lake City has doubled, simply because there are no longer enough passengers to share the expenses. Meanwhile, many people who once chose Utah for backpacking or vacations are now turning to Colorado, Montana, or even Canada, where tourism infrastructure is receiving new investment. Without its role as a transit stop, Utah risks disappearing from the aviation map entirely. Salt Lake, a tranquil lake framed by Red Rock Desert, now reflects the image of an airport standing still in the wind, as if waiting for travelers who will never arrive. It's like a train station at the end of the line, open, lit, but deserted. When a place once called the quiet gem of America also falls into silence, where else is safe from the wave of shrinking air travel? Have you ever chosen a quiet place like Utah? If not, maybe that opportunity is disappearing. 12. Charlotte Douglas International Airport, Charlotte, North Carolina. Charlotte Douglas International Airport, once one of the busiest domestic hubs in the eastern United States with hundreds of thousands of connecting passengers each year, has become surprisingly quiet. Night flights are decreasing. Many airport restaurants have shortened their hours due to a lack of customers. A bustling transit stop has become a place where employees now leave even before official closing time. Charlotte thrived thanks to its role as a strategic hub, a stopover connecting north to south, east to west. But 2025 has delivered a harsh reality. Americans are simply flying less. Both leisure and business travel have declined due to rising costs, frustration with poor service, and frequent delays. Airlines are prioritizing larger airports like Atlanta, Dallas, and Chicago to consolidate passengers and reduce operational costs at mid-sized hubs like Charlotte. The old hub-and-spoke model no longer aligns with new traveler behavior. There are fewer connections, a stronger preference for direct flights, and a drive to keep trips cheaper and shorter. Charlotte isn't less capable, it has simply been sidelined by the very system it once relied on. It is like a large bus station with fewer routes, still lit but quiet, missing the energy of travelers. An airport that was once the crossroads of the South now feels like an alley blocked off on Google Maps. If a hub like Charlotte is also losing its lifeline, what does that mean for the cities you can no longer fly to directly? Have you ever had a layover in Charlotte? Do you still see it on your flight schedule now? 13. A national picture of decline from JFK to Honolulu, from Charlotte to Salt Lake City. The airports that once symbolized movement, connection, and the American dream are now deserted even in the middle of summer. This isn't just a decline in tourism. It's a quiet warning that trust in the system is fracturing. Do you see this happening where you live? Is the airport near you as busy as before, or is it slowly sinking into silence? If you have thoughts on this, please share them in the comments below. We read everything. If you find topics like this important, please consider subscribing and turning on the notification bell so you don't miss future videos. All data and observations in this video are drawn from public reports, independent research, and user feedback. This video is not intended to make absolute claims, but to open discussion and encourage viewers to verify information and share their own real-life experiences.